My name is Danica, and I'm a senior manager on our workforce programs team at the Partnership for Public Service. And for those of you not familiar with the partnership, it is a nonpartisan nonprofit working to build a better government and a stronger democracy through policy ideas to make government work better, through leadership development, workforce programming, and convening conversations like this one to help support the federal workforce. We are here to support you as best we can through resource sharing, providing plain language explainers, and continuing to share the stories of the incredible work that federal employees do for the country. So on that note, I want to say happy Public Service Recognition Week, and thank you for your service. If you're just joining us this evening, I want to share a few notes before digging into today's content. In these sessions, we always do our best to address questions that were submitted before the session. Additionally, you can also submit a question anonymously through the Q&A function on this webinar, and we will work to get through some of those as well. Though we may not be able to address every single question that comes through today, we will continue to hold FedSupport webinars on a weekly basis to dig into additional topics. So please be on the lookout for more webinars in the coming weeks. We'll also be posting all of these webinar conversations on our FedSupport website for federal employees. That website will be shared in the chat shortly. Finally, while this discussion is geared for federal employees, it is an open forum, and we may have folks joining us from other communities. So welcome again to all at this webinar. So as mentioned, my name is Danica. I'm a senior manager at the partnership, and I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I've been working with the partnership's early career talent programs for almost 2.5 years. And prior to that, I worked in higher education, managing internship and study abroad programming. And actually, it was the Fulbright program through the Department of State that really led me into this career path of teaching, program management, and now supporting public servants through our work at the partnership. I appreciate all of you and the work that you do, and it's great to be with you all. I'm joined by my colleague, Kristen Carroll. Kristen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you today. I'm Kristen Carroll, and I'm a manager of workforce programs here at the partnership, also with a focus on our early career talent programs. I will be celebrating my 1-year anniversary with the partnership next week, which is very exciting. And prior to this role, I spent 12 years in higher education, specializing in career development and employer relations. And during that time, I organized dozens of career fairs, mock interviews, networking events, and also worked really closely with students to help them prepare for those events. I've spoken with hundreds of employers across industry to also understand what they're looking for when they're recruiting and how to best prepare students and alumni for those events. So I'm very excited to share what I've learned along the way with you this evening. And Danica, I will pass it back to you.
Thanks, Kristen. So alongside the two of us, you may also hear from my colleague, Sam, also on our workforce team, who is joining us to help dig through the questions and keep us on track. So as a reminder, you are welcome to use the Q&A box on the webinar, on this Zoom webinar tonight. So today, this webinar is about maximizing your impact at networking events and career fairs. Our objectives for participants today are to lead with an understanding of the following: explore different types of networking and recruiting events, and learn where to find opportunities that align with your career goals. Learn how to strategically prepare before an event, communicate your value during the event, and follow up with purpose afterward. Apply best practices for both in-person and virtual networking, including how to research organizations, craft a strong introduction, and make meaningful connections. And lastly, we will preview the partnership's Career Expo on May 15th and gain actionable tips to navigate the event confidently and maximize new opportunities. So with those objectives in mind, we'll begin. So first, a framer of types of networking and recruiting events that you may be familiar with. Let's start by breaking down these types of events you might encounter during your job search. Not every event is about handing someone your resume and hoping for a job offer. Some are about connecting, some are about learning, and others are about getting your foot in the door in a new industry. For career fairs, these are probably the most well-known and potentially the most overwhelming. Career fairs typically bring together multiple employers who are actively recruiting. Some fairs can be general, while others are industry specific. Some are in person and some are on virtual platforms. A huge benefit of career fairs is that face time with recruiters. And later in the webinar, we will use the partnership's May 15th virtual career fair as a case study for how to prepare for this type of event. That career fair is specifically for federal employees or former federal employees interested in state and local public service opportunities, and we're excited to share more throughout this hour. For industry panels, these are more about listening and learning rather than pitching yourself. You'll hear from leaders in a specific field like tech, public health, cybersecurity, or human resources who are there to share trends, insights, and hiring tips. Even though you're not speaking one-on-one with a recruiter, you should absolutely still leverage the panelists after the event. Connect on LinkedIn and reference something specific they said. You could even go a step further and ask if they'd be willing to schedule an informational interview with you. Which leads us to informational interviews. These aren't technically events, but they're worth mentioning. This is when you reach out to someone, maybe a former federal employee now working in the non-federal sectors, and ask to learn about their experience. The goal of an informational interview is not to ask for a job per se, it's to ask for insight. These chats are they could often lead to unexpected connections, referrals, or advice you won't find online. For example, you could say, I saw you transitioned from the Department of Homeland Security to a role in corporate security, and I'd love to hear how that shift was for you. Another type of engagement are virtual mixers and networking hours. These are more casual and often hosted on Zoom or platforms like Gather or Hopin. They're great for organic conversations and lower pressure connections. You might find one through a professional group you follow, an alumni network, or even an online community focused on your area of interest. Now is a great time to note that you should tap into your alumni networks. Many colleges and universities serve alumni for life in career services or for a certain number of years post-graduation, so it's worth checking that out. You might be eligible to attend your alma mater's networking events and career fairs on an ongoing basis. I still go to my alumni gatherings here in Southern California just to keep making new connections, and I appreciate that. We've also seen colleges hosting networking events specifically for current and former federal employees in recent months. Lastly, workshops and webinars like the one you're in right now, these are learning focused. That doesn't mean that they're not networking opportunities still. Pay attention to who's hosting, who's in the chat, who's showing up with thoughtful questions. And although you can't see participants or the chat in this particular webinar, you often can in others. And you never know, someone attending the same workshop might be your next colleague or connection. Why are all of these events important? Each of these events offers a different kind of return on investment. Some are about exposure, some are about relationships, and some are about education. You don't have to attend them all. Preserving your bandwidth and energy is important right now, but you should know how to make the most of whichever ones you do choose to attend. Next, Kristen is going to talk more about where to find these events.
Thank you, Danica. So with all of the information that is available to us, where do we begin to make connections in the private sector, nonprofits, or higher ed, especially if up until now your entire network has been rooted in government? First, alumni networks and your university career center. Danica just talked about this, but I think it's worth repeating. Your alumni community is one of your strongest assets. And your college, your university, or even if you did a certificate program, it is in their best interest for you to succeed. So they want to help you navigate a career pivot. You might want to check your alma mater's alumni association website or utilize LinkedIn. You can search for your school on LinkedIn and then filter by alumni and then further filter by industry or location. You can also reference any continuing education programs you've done, including boot camps, nonprofit fellowships, any higher ed adjacent community that you can tap into. And especially if you're transitioning into higher ed, this is really valuable to tap into your alma mater. You can attend panels, job fairs, and career spotlights, specifically focused on education, student success, and institutional operations. Just some tangible examples of events that we've heard about recently. Our friends at the University of Georgia's Washington semester program are currently connecting alumni who have lost their jobs in federal government with other alumni who are offering their support with career transitions, which is so lovely. And the University of Maryland College Park, their School of Public Policy, recently received a grant to support alumni with the creation of career transition resources for alumni who are facing a career transition. So just a few examples. I'm sure there are many more across the country with various institutions. Next, state and local events. So we know that many of you are interested or considering careers in state and local government. And first, I would just start by checking out your state or a state that you are interested in relocating to. Look at the state and municipal job boards, sign up for any newsletters, and then watch for information on any career events and info sessions. Many states now host virtual and hybrid events just to reach a wider audience. So if you are considering relocating, you can hopefully access hiring events in other states outside of where you currently reside. So I would start with the state or city's official HR website. You can search terms like jobs, human resources, or civil service opportunities. And there are examples of specific statewide HR websites like Cal Careers for California, NYC Jobs, Work for Indiana, and Texas State Jobs are just a few examples of those state-specific sites. You can also check NASPE, which is the National Association of State Personnel Executives. They often promote innovation in state hiring and will feature events on their website. GovEvents is another website that aggregates data. So they'll feature webinars, job fairs, conferences, all within the public service sector, including state and local opportunities. And then I would also recommend checking out professional associations of counties, cities, or even mayors. So the International City Council Management Association is one option, ICMA, or the NLC, which is the National League of Cities. These groups host leadership development events and often post job listings or career mixers that are focused on topics like city planning, housing, transportation, and sustainability. Lastly, I would check out your local workforce board or economic development council. They may partner with state agencies, nonprofits, or universities on joint events, and these are great places to meet hiring managers who are looking for value-aligned professionals who are also really invested in their own region. So if you aren't looking to relocate, you can get hyper-local with your local workforce board or development council. Other places where you can find recruitment events, and these might be more known or familiar to folks. So job boards such as LinkedIn often will also feature events, live Q&As with hiring managers. So definitely start with a site like LinkedIn events. You can use the search bar and filter by events instead of jobs. And even just try keywords like career change or nonprofit hiring or even higher ed networking if you are looking for events specific to your field or interest area. Traverse Jobs is another great site for professionals who are seeking mission aligned and remote work. They have a lot of roles in the nonprofit or social impact sector, and they also host a lot of events that highlight organizations that share those same values. And then if you're looking for something specific, like within the higher ed community, job boards like higheredjobs.com or Chronicle Vitae, they also list career fairs and webinars within the higher ed space. Lastly, if you are a member of professional organizations or curious about professional organizations, now is a great time to tap into those communities because many of them host events as well. Especially if you're moving into a new sector, this is a great way to learn the new language and culture of a sector you might not be as familiar with. So some examples of that might include the Society for Human Resources Management, for anyone currently or interested in moving into HR, the Project Management Institute, if you're someone who has led complex policy or cross-agency teams or large-scale projects, that could be a great fit for you. And then NASPA, we have NASPA with 1A, which is the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, and NASPA with 2As, which is the Network of Schools of Public Policy Affairs and Administration. So those are two great organizations if you're interested in moving into higher education to help network in that space. You can look out for things like monthly coffee chats, annual conferences, which for conferences, they can be expensive, but there often might be reduced pricing if you are seeking, you're a job seeker, or if you volunteer a bit of your time with the event, they often offer free or reduced admission. And then webinars are also great, like you're attending tonight, you're already used to this format. This is a great way to connect and get information. So just to close us out on types of recruitment events and where to find them, think about what kind of connection you're looking for. Do you want to learn about what's out there? Maybe if you just want to learn, you're in that exploratory phase, an industry panel or workshop is the best fit for you. If you really are ready to get out there and meet hiring managers and talk about positions and alignment and hiring, those career fairs are really the place that you want to be, or any sort of professional association meetup or mixer. And then if you just want community support, there are a lot of platforms online where you can find that: Facebook groups, alumni groups, LinkedIn forums. With that, I will pass it back to Danica, and we will start to get into how we actually prepare to attend these events.
Thank you again, Kristen. And as we shift into how to prepare for a career fair or networking event, I wanted to answer a question from a participant. So as a reminder, you can use that Q&A box for questions throughout the hour, not only the end of this hour. I received a question: how can someone looking for an executive or senior level opportunity make the most of a job fair? Is networking a more effective option at this level? And I'll note that the preparation for an event such as a career fair is key to knowing how an event might serve you and your career level, your specific goals for your next job, and who might be attending the event. So the career fair that the partnership will host on May 15th, for example, will include from early career to senior level opportunities, and is certainly open to folks looking at all those levels. Other career fairs that you might encounter might be for a specific career level that may not be applicable to you. And because your time is precious, you do want to look into that, event description, intended audience, which agencies or employers may be there, before determining if it's a good opportunity or fit for you. Networking overall through all of these types of events is absolutely a great option, peer-to-peer as well. Great. So for pre-event preparation, whether it's a large event space, joining a Zoom breakout, or meeting someone for coffee, preparation is so important, as said. So there are 3 big pieces to consider: knowing your audience, knowing yourself, and prepping your materials. So on the next slide, first we'll discuss knowing your audience. It's important to research who you'll meet, both the organization and, if possible, a specific recruiter. That's the best preparation you can do. Before the event, ask yourself what companies will be there, what's their mission, are they actively hiring, and what roles are they promoting during that event. You may have to look at their specific website to look at those specific openings, or they might have pre-uploaded or pre-shared in event materials and registration materials exactly their openings. Do they have values or initiatives that align with yours, like equity, sustainability, or innovation, for example? Are there people attending who also transitioned from federal work or changed industries recently? It's also great to look for common threads. Maybe a company works on disaster response and you managed interagency coordination. Maybe the hiring manager is a fellow veteran or former federal employee and you share that in common. Maybe they're focused on community impact and you've been doing that your whole career just at a national level. So there are definitely common threads to share and connect on. A tip here on the slide: check company LinkedIn pages, recent press or blog posts, and if someone you're meeting has a public LinkedIn profile, scan it for shared experiences, alma maters, or mission overlap. The next slide will discuss preparation, the preparation component of knowing yourself for these events. Have a clear personal brand and elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is a brief 30-second introduction that highlights who you are, what you do, and the value you bring. It's not a detailed resume summary in verbal form, but focus on key skills and what you're seeking. For a career fair or speed networking event, your elevator pitch might be very brief. For example, I managed large-scale grants at the Department of Education, and now I'm exploring program evaluation roles in higher ed or philanthropy. Another example: after 10 years leading operations in a federal agency, I'm looking at project management roles in mission-driven tech or healthcare companies. Both of those examples are one sentence. If you'd like to dive deeper into crafting your elevator pitch, the partnership's free asynchronous Career Pivot Bootcamp course includes helpful modules on developing your personal brand and refining that elevator pitch. You'll also want to understand your skills and how they translate to different sectors. A skills assessment is a really valuable tool, and the partnership actually created a skills assessment worksheet specifically for federal employees, and we'll share that in the chat as well. If you'd like to learn more about conducting a skills assessment, there is a dedicated module in the Career Pivot Bootcamp that I mentioned, and we'll also share a recent skills assessment webinar recording. As mentioned, that bootcamp with both resources that I just noted is a free asynchronous course for you. On the next slide, we've also included a few examples of common federal employee skills and how they might translate into the private sector. For example, you can look at some of the skills listed on the left-hand side of the slide. If you worked in talent recruitment or workforce planning, your skills in people operations are transferable to complementary HR roles in other industries, needed everywhere. If you worked, on the next slide, we have additional examples. If you worked in policy development for a federal agency, there are absolutely transferable skills in other levels of government or in public policy positions in the private sector. What's important to note is that you have more skills and transferable skills than you think. You just need to know how to communicate them in a new context. Next, for preparation, we'll want to prepare your materials for these types of events. What you need can vary depending on the type of event, whether it's a career fair, a networking event, or an industry panel, and whether it's in person or virtual. What I'm sharing now is outlined on this slide. It's best practice to check the event website or any confirmation emails for guidance and preparation as well. Organizers often include tips on what to bring or prepare, like whether resumes will be collected and expected, or if there's a virtual resume bank to upload your materials in advance before the time and date of the event. Generally, for in-person events, you can plan to bring a printed resume. Bring multiple copies printed on clean, neutral paper. If you have multiple resume versions tailored to different employers or industries, make sure you have a system to keep them organized for the busy day and in-person event. And it's okay if not all employers will accept a resume in that context. When speaking with someone, you can ask them directly, would it be helpful for you to have a copy of my resume? In addition to resumes, business cards are a great option and not required, of course, but they serve an important purpose. So they include your name, phone, email address, maybe your LinkedIn, and maybe a short tagline like the keywords you would feature on your LinkedIn title. If you don't have a business card right now, it's likely that the recruiters or the staff at the event, at their own tables, are offering their own business cards, and it does not hurt to ask. That's why they're staffing these events, to meet and connect with job seekers like you. It's also helpful to bring a slim folder or a pad folio to keep all of your materials organized. Use the smaller pocket to collect brochures or business cards, and keep a pen and notepad to jot down quick impressions or names to help you in your follow-up, which we'll also touch on. So when you are at an event, you can take quick notes in all of these encounters. You can include the companies you're hoping to speak with, a few targeted questions per company, space to write who you met and what stood out. And similarly for virtual events, on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll want to have your updated resume saved as a clearly named PDF. You'll want to upload it to the platform if that is a function of the event, or otherwise have it ready to share easily via chat or email. For your LinkedIn for virtual events, this is your virtual version of a business card. Make sure the About section is current. Update the Skills section with relevant keywords to your target industry. And make sure that your profile has public visibility, and that's a function on your profile to make sure your custom URL is shareable and clean. For virtual events, still keep a system for note-keeping on your desk or another screen. You'll want to, again, note the target companies and speakers you plan to engage with, questions you'd like to ask, and a place to take notes, who you spoke with, what you learned, and any follow-up ideas. For technical preparedness for virtual events, there are additional considerations to prepare. So make sure that your space setup is in a quiet, private room. If you're not using a virtual background or background blur feature, like the one that I have on Zoom today, make sure your visible background is clean and neutral and professional. You also want to make sure that you have good lighting and that the camera is positioned at eye level. Before the event, check your internet connection and test your camera, mic, and audio settings. Use a laptop or desktop if possible, and close all unnecessary apps and notifications to help with your focus. Charge devices ahead of time or have them plugged in. So with all of that, in closing, preparation is important and it makes you memorable. It shows that you're not only browsing, you're invested, engaged, and ready to bring your value into a new role. So all of that is very important for preparing for an event. Now, Kristen will talk about how to navigate the actual event.
Thank you, Danica. And before I get into that content, I do want to take a couple questions from the chat. And Danica, feel free to jump in if there's anything you want to add. First, what is the dress code for job fairs generally? I would say in my experience, it's more business casual, maybe business formal in some situations, but hopefully the event website or any email, registration page will explicitly let you know what the dress code is. If it does not, and I know this can cause people anxiety, knowing what to wear and not wanting to be over or underdressed, it's always appropriate to reach out to whoever is hosting the event just to confirm the best dress. But I would say business casual is standard for in-person career fairs. And of course, if you're virtual, you just want to be business casual or professional from your waist up. I would also say on a personal note, make sure you wear something that feels like you, because I have formal clothes that I do not feel like my confident best self in, and that really affects how you carry yourself. So you want to show up and be as authentically you as possible, and that includes what you're wearing as long as it is appropriate for the event that you're attending. Another great question, I used to get this all the time in higher ed. If you are looking at all the job openings for participating employers at a career fair, and there are no jobs that interest you or that you're qualified for, is it still worth attending? I say yes, absolutely. I know some folks might feel like they are wasting time by not being an ideal candidate for a specific role. But ultimately, career fairs are networking events. And so if you go the extra step, maybe the company isn't hiring for a role that you're qualified for currently, but if they do work that you're still interested in, and there are other roles there that you're qualified for, do that research, come in with that information. And when you do your elevator pitch, let them know, like, I see that you're not currently hiring for any project management roles. My background is in, and let them know your background in project management. I would love to stay in touch and be considered in the event a role opens up in the future. So just doing that extra bit of research, but ultimately this is exploratory. This is a chance for you to, expand your network, make new contacts, practice talking about yourself. Career fairs are also great for that. And maybe in like a low risk environment where you're not actively seeking employment with any of the employers, and you can just practice being able to communicate your values, strengths, and skills. And then I'll take one more question from the chat before we move on to our content. So if we tailor our resumes to applications, which yes, is a good thing to do, which resume should you bring with you to a career fair? Great question. I do think we might address this at some point, but I would recommend bringing multiple copies. If it's a virtual event, you would just have your multiple versions clearly labeled, the PDF, so you know which to share with which employer. And then in person, you would just have multiple printed copies and just have a system for labeling them so you know which resume to share with which employer. But it's an extra step. Of course, it takes more time, but it is very valuable, makes you memorable, shows that you're really invested, and took the time to tailor your experience to that particular organization or role. So with that, let's talk about what we do during the actual event. You've done all of this preparation to get to this moment. You did your research, you updated your resume, you practiced your elevator pitch, and now it's time for the event. You want to be strategic. You do not need to meet every employer that is there, and you really shouldn't try to. All you need is a few genuine, thoughtful conversations that could lead to something else, like an insight, mentorship. I know that's come up in the chat. Hopefully we'll be able to address that, or a new connection. So as part of your prep that Danica was talking about, you should have a short list of the companies or people that you want to speak with, a few tailored questions to ask those organizations, and also an idea of what you're hoping to get out of each conversation. Some great questions that you can ask the recruiters at a career fair are, what do you love about your organization's culture? And what kinds of roles or departments are most open to people making a career pivot? So what would be your best entry point into that organization if you're making a career pivot? You also want to stay engaged, and you might be familiar with the phrase, listen to understand, not to respond. Active listening is really hard in general, but at a networking event, because we want to make a good impression. So we're listening so hard and thinking about what we want to say next because we want to seem competent and like witty. But whether you're in person or virtual, you want to show that you're engaged and invested in the conversation. So you're nodding, you're reacting, you're making eye contact, which if you're virtual, you're going to look straight at the camera. And it's important to actively listen because you want your notes to include who you spoke with, but also key insights that they shared, roles or teams that they mentioned, any advice or offers to connect further, and personal details. I love, this is such a good tip. It really makes a difference in your follow-up. Write down anything personal, like the recruiter is camping in Colorado next week, said to follow up in late May about a strategy role that might be opening up. So when you follow up in late May, you could ask, how was your camping trip in Colorado? Little touches like that really do make such a difference. You also want to confirm next steps. So as you're speaking to the recruiter, you want to wrap up the conversation in a natural and respectful way, but also understand where is this going. So you could say, would it be okay if I followed up with you on LinkedIn or by email? Or you could say, I really enjoyed speaking with you. Is there someone else at your company you'd recommend I connect with as I continue to explore this path? If you're at a virtual event, especially like the partnerships, things might be moving quickly. So just make sure you're keeping a running note on your phone or have an email draft open where you can just drop in name of who you spoke with, company, highlights from the chat, next steps. And then that way, when it's time to follow up, you're prepared. And your notes, you're not staring at notes that like don't make sense to you anymore because you just wrote a jumbled mess. I know I'm guilty of that. I also just want to acknowledge a few quick tips for navigating overstimulating environments. So if you're in person, often, it can be a big crowd, a bright space. It can feel very overwhelming. On top of that, you might be nervous just to, be putting yourself out there, talking to recruiters. So check out the space when you arrive. Is there a quiet area, a space outside of the main room, any sort of low traffic zone that you can identify that's where you can go and sort of regroup, decompress, or potentially invite the recruiter if they're able to step away from their table to come have a more casual, quiet, one-on-one conversation with you. You might also want to use a grounding tool. So that could be carrying a small object in your pocket, just something tactile if you're feeling overstimulated or overwhelmed that can help ground you in that moment. Or maybe you have a mantra that you're saying to yourself in your mind to help keep you grounded. And then take breaks. This is on your own terms. You are allowed to leave the event. You're allowed to step away and take a break, just to recharge and really protect your piece to make sure you're feeling good. And then you can also just as easily be overwhelmed virtually. So if you're attending a big virtual event, you want to manage that Zoom fatigue or any social anxiety by using the chat box strategically. So you don't always have to speak out loud. Putting a thoughtful comment in the chat can be just as impactful as coming off mute and speaking. You also want to keep your notes visible, so making sure you have your talking points right in front of you can ease any pressure, to think of what to say if you have well thought out notes in front of you. And then also make sure you're minimizing distractions. So if you're worried about sensory overload, keep what is open on your screen very simple. Minimize any tabs that you do not need open. You can even dim your screen brightness, dim the lighting in the room just to make you feel more comfortable. So now we're going to shift to how to effectively follow up after the event. So the event has ended. Now, what do you do? The right follow-up can really turn a casual chat into a more sustained relationship, potentially a mentorship, or a job opportunity. So you want to be sure to send a thoughtful follow-up, and you should really try and send it within 24 to 48 hours of the event while the conversation is still fresh in both of your minds. You want to keep the follow-up gracious. You want to thank them for their time. You want it to be specific and reference something that you talked about, and you want it to be concise. Keep it short and sweet. You do not need to write them a cover letter in your follow-up email. You also don't need to sell yourself here. Don't overthink this. I know I do, a lot of people tend to, but you just want to show that you were listening, that you valued speaking with them, and that you're good at building relationships. That is so important to many roles across sectors. Another tip, if the person mentioned any sort of resource, book, article, job opening, include a quick note. Just say I've already bookmarked the article that you mentioned, or I've read it. Thank you so much. It really resonated. Again, it just shows that you're being thoughtful and taking this really seriously. You also want to stay organized. This is why we keep emphasizing the importance of notes app on your phone, old school pen and paper. It's really easy to walk out of one of these events and immediately forget the names of everyone you just spoke with, what you said. So you really want to create a system that works for you to keep track of who you met and what needs follow-up. So that could be a simple spreadsheet with columns for the name, the organization, what you talked about, and the next step. It can be a notebook where you have a dedicated page in the notebook for each person you spoke with. Or it could be your notes app or another free organization app like Notion that can help you track that information. You also want to keep the conversation going. So you don't want it to just end after the follow-up email. After that first message, you might share a relevant article or event down the line. You could also check back in if a job opens up in their department that you're interested in, or you can ask for an informational interview if they offered it. A lot of folks will ask how often is appropriate to follow up, how much is too much. I think 24 to 48 hours within the initial event. See what happens from there. Do they suggest an informational interview? Give it a natural pause, maybe 3 weeks, a month, check back in. I think, anything more frequent than once a month might be too much, but feel it out based on the unique individual relationship you have with that recruiter. If you're questioning, am I contacting this person too much? You might be. So just exercise good judgment and caution there. And not every follow-up turns into something, and that's okay. These relationships take time, and it just might not have been the right connection for you, but you can keep trying making those new connections. So in closing, I always love to emphasize following up isn't awkward. It's professional, it's what's expected. And as long as you're reaching out with relevant content at appropriate intervals, you don't need to worry about bothering anyone. Thoughtful follow-up will show that you're engaged, you're proactive, and you're serious about building these connections. So next, I know we're getting tight on time. Danica will briefly share about the partnership's upcoming state and local career fair, and then we'll try and get to more of your questions as well.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. So with all of these tips in mind, let's discuss how you can maximize the partnership's career fair, find your next calling, state and local opportunities for former feds on Thursday, May 15th from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So all of the tips we've shared, we hope are widely applicable to any relevant event or networking engagement that you are pursuing. But we also want to really spotlight the virtual career fair that the partnership and our team will be hosting next week. So I mentioned the time on May 15th is from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to note that you do not have to attend the entire length of that event. There will be representatives from various time zones and states represented for that entire span as well. So this career fair is open to any former federal employee interested in continuing a career in public service at the state and local levels of government. It will feature opportunities from across the country in a variety of career fields, for all experience levels, from early career professionals to senior executives. This will be a virtual event hosted on the Radency platform, allowing you to visit booths with state and local agency representatives in direct conversations. You'll also be able to join conversations with the agencies you're most interested in. You'll be able to share your resume and browse current job openings in between conversations. This Career Expo will also feature webinars on career development topics to sharpen your skills. To access the registration page, you can scan the QR code on the slide, and we'll also put the URL in the chat. If you've already registered, we're so glad to have you here today in preparation for next week's event, and we hope that others of you will register as well. So from there, you'll click the blue Sign Up Now button to secure your spot. What to expect in this event? Each employer from state and local agencies will have a booth. You can think of that booth as the employer's table at an in-person career fair. The employers will be able to set up their booth and utilize chats in 3 different ways, depending on their goals for the fair. So you might engage in 3 different scenarios here. Scheduled chats are opportunities for employers who can view the attendee list and reach out to specific candidates whose skills align with their hiring needs. And in this case, prior to the event, you would receive an email prompting you to sign up for a one-on-one chat during the fair's time frame in an invited time. Don't be discouraged if you don't receive an invite for a scheduled chat. It just means that various employers at the event next week won't be using that feature, and some will. Another option are booth chats. This is the most traditional career fair scenario. You'll queue up virtually and wait in line to have a one-on-one chat with an agency representative. Attendees will join those booths individually on a first-come, first-served basis, and you'll see where you are in the line as well. There will also be the possibility of group chats. The employer might want to use a group chat feature for the recruiter to speak to multiple attendees at one time. This example is less likely, but it's good to prepare and be aware of the possibility of a group conversation. So chats can be text only, video, or audio on the platform. All chats are 10 minutes long and will begin as text chats in greeting. From there, the employer has the option to initiate a video or audio chat. In addition to employer chats with various booths, you can browse job openings and attend career development webinars to enhance your skills. The partnership's Call to Serve team is actually hosting a webinar from 11 to 12 Eastern Time on how to create a rolling resume and transition your federal resume into a non-federal resume. We received a specific question on that during today's webinar, so I wanted to highlight that specific webinar is about resumes. And if you can't attend at that time, we encourage you to sign up for our free Career Pivot Bootcamp resource as well. I want to thank Kristen, who will be co-facilitating that specific session on resumes as well. We'll also have booths staffed by the partnership, including myself, where you can practice and get feedback on your elevator pitch or have a quick resume review. You might choose to only browse booths or attend webinars, and whatever you choose, that is great. So many of the tips we discussed earlier apply to this event. I'll quickly note that once you register, the partnership will share additional details and attendee FAQs about the Radiancy platform. You can prepare by updating your resume and LinkedIn profile. You can complete your Radiancy profile. You can research the participating employees. And since all booth chats will begin as a text-based conversation, consider drafting a brief introduction that you can type up and have with you during the virtual event. You can have it ready so you can share it as you enter each chat. And this allows you to copy and paste your message, make sure it's copy edited, rather than typing a new intro every time, being mindful of that 10-minute time with each booth. We recommend preparing a customized intro tailored to the different employers you plan to speak with. So keep a list and a document. You'll likely want to organize those introductions in advance, which is a great way to mentally prepare as well. It can be similar to the elevator pitch we discussed. Hello, my name is Danica, and I am an experienced project manager interested in learning more about opportunities at your agency. You might highlight a different skill depending on who you're sending it to and which employers you're speaking to. Once you enter a video chat on the platform, consider reintroducing yourself in that format. Expand on who you are, your background, and what you would like to learn. So I know that was a lot of tips on this specific event. Run through quickly in our remaining time, but we encourage you to visit the event page to learn more. And once you register, you'll also receive additional resources from the partnership to help you prepare step by step. We're really grateful and excited to host this event in support of your job search and goals. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. On the slide, there are various ways to stay in touch with the partnership. We encourage you to take advantage of the partnership's career fair or explore other events that align with your location and interests. So more to come from us in support of you. And we do have a few minutes to answer any questions you have. And in the meantime, while we review some questions, we also want to get your input on sessions going forward. So in a moment, you will see a poll from the Zoom poll function on your screen. It's a way for us to receive feedback about this webinar and ask 3 questions. One is asking how effective you feel this webinar has been. Second, how much you agree that you'll take information from this webinar and apply it moving forward. And third, asking for your input on future webinar topics. So that poll will be initiated. I see it popping up on my screen right now, and your responses will be anonymous. So thank you in advance. Kristen, any initial question that you'd like to answer?
Sure, we do have one about mentorship that came in earlier. So when developing a relationship with someone you meet at a networking event, when is it appropriate to bring up mentorship and how best to approach this? I think mentorship is something that happens naturally. You really can't force it. And so you'll have to just feel out how the relationship and the conversation is progressing. So if you do have a really natural, organic connection with the recruiter, you are taking your notes, you send them the follow-up email, and then maybe from there you do schedule an informational interview. If that informational interview goes really well, I would send, a thoughtful follow-up email after that to say, I really enjoy speaking with you. Like, your experience resonates with me, your life experience resonates with me. I would love to stay in touch with you, and really would love to, get advice from you on navigating my search, my resume, whatever it might be. And I think it just will naturally happen over time, if you have that natural connection, that you'll stay in touch, that it will just become a mentorship situation. But it is tricky if you are trying to approach it where you just are like looking, it's like speed dating almost. Like, I'm here to find a mentor. I think it can be challenging to put that pressure on yourself. Danica, anything that you would add?
Thank you. I'll actually jump to a logistical question that I see. We were asked if you can upload your resume for the May 15th event right now. And I did want to clarify that when you RSVP for the event, which you can absolutely do right now, or register for the event rather, you will not be asked to upload a resume in that registration for the event, but in follow-up as a participant, prior to May 15th, you'll have access to the event platform where you can set up your profile, add in some information about yourself, and that's where you can upload a resume. So thank you for asking.
Another question: for informational interviews, what kind of thank you follow-up is appropriate? I read somewhere that a handwritten note is best, but that seems old-fashioned. Is email or text appropriate? I exclusively email at this point. I used to send handwritten notes, but I haven't in a long time. If it was someone I like really, really wanted to impress, and I thought that they would appreciate a handwritten note, like knowing, more about them, I would send a handwritten note. But otherwise, I think email has become the standard. And I certainly, if someone sends me a thank you email, I'm not judging them for not sending a handwritten note. Text, if you're on a texting basis with the person, and that's the communication you've established with one another, that might be appropriate as well, but I would personally stick with email. And then we just received a question if we could post links to the tool for skills assessment. Yes, we should be able to grab that link from our past April 23rd webinar on skills assessment, and that the YouTube link contains the PDF to the skills assessment in that. So Danica, if you maybe want to grab one more question, I'll try and find that link.
One more logistical question for our upcoming event on May 15th. Where can you find information on the resume seminar that I shared about? That is included. So when you register for the May 15th event, you'll receive follow-up information in preparation to use the platform and outline your day. The resume seminar shared from our team will be from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern on May 15th. So that's all included on the same event platform as the Career Expo, and all included in the same event registration. So although we are running out of time, we really appreciate your questions, and we hope to see all of you at the May 15th Career Fair. We're really grateful to host that for you. Please don't forget to visit our FedSupport website for all of the resources we discussed, and more to come. Thank you all for joining us. We know it's busy. We appreciate you taking time, and we appreciate you investing in yourself as well in this career search. Please keep questions and topics coming, and we look forward to keeping in touch through this FedSupport series. Thank you again for all that you do and for your service, and have a good evening.